Hi everybody, my name's Steve Marks. I'm from Blackstar UK and I'm at Mega Music in Perth, and this is an exclusive video for you guys to check out the ID Core Beam. This is a desktop amplifier for guitar, bass, acoustic and Bluetooth streaming, hence the name Beam. It's an acronym: Bass Electric Acoustic Music. It's a really cool bit of kit. We've got two speakers on the front here, and each speaker is in its own individual enclosure. So there's a separate division, and also each side is ported as well for bass response. So before we head into the Bluetooth streaming and the music, let me just show you something about the guitar tones. Basically, we have 6 sounds. We have a clean warm, a clean bright, crunch, super crunch, overdrive 1, overdrive 2, and that's your choices for guitar. There is a gain stage, volume, and Blackstar's ISF, infinite shape feature for your EQ, and that allows you to shape the EQ from more of an American tighter sound to more of an open, pushed mid British style sound. There's also 12 super wide stereo effects, and the super wide stereo technology is really a new thing for everybody out there, and you really need to get into the store here to try it out. But it really gives you a 3-dimensional soundscape. It's very, very cool, almost like you're playing in a stadium in the comfort of your own office or bedroom. And there's 4 types of delay, 4 types of modulation, and 4 types of reverb, and you can have one of each to run 3 simultaneous effects at one time. You can store your presets in here as well. So with the addition to the 6 initial guitar voices, there's another 2 voices for the electric, which are acoustic simulators. We've then got 2 acoustic voices as well, and then 2 bass voices. So all in all, you've got the chance to store 12 of your favorite presets. Let me just run through the amplifier dry, just to show you some of the guitar tones. So this is our clean warm. Clean bright. We've then got crunch. We can push the gain stage there. It's around about the middle, 12 o'clock. So if you push it around about 3 o'clock. Then we've got super crunch, slightly more saturation. OD1. OD2. In addition to those 2 overdrive voices, we have a built-in noise gate as well. So you can see that when I turn my volumes up on the guitar, nice and quiet, but when I dig in, you can turn those noise gates off as well with the addition of the software, which we'll look at in a moment. So let's reintroduce some effects. So if we go back to maybe a clean bright sound and put on a little bit of reverb. Nice added effect there, and I'm just using basically a hall reverb there, but you have spring, hall, plate, and room as well to choose from. Let's maybe introduce a little bit of delay as well. Now you might not be able to get this from the camera or what you're watching on, but if you can, try and listen to it on headphones or some good speakers, give it a bit more volume. And like I said earlier, you really have to experience this in the moment in the store, so make sure you come down and check it out. But you can really get a 3-dimensional sound, and the sound is bouncing around you. Really, really cool, really unique. And then we can look at the modulations. So we've got things like flanger, chorus, phaser, tremolo. But if we just get maybe a little bit of chorus on there. And then we can reintroduce the other effects again to have 3 simultaneous. Then you can store your preset to that initial ingredient, which is the voice. Really cool. Another thing to show you as well is just simply a delay on a crunch sound. So if I set a reasonably high gain, saturated kind of British sound, if we put on maybe a digital reverb and then introduce that, should sound pretty cool for a great lead tone. Lots of fun, really quite cool. So let's show you another instrument. Let's maybe look at the acoustic guitar. Okay, so now you can see I've got a nice acoustic guitar ready to go, and I've plugged into the additional 6 voices. All we need to do that is simply just press the voicing switch and the LED will go from red to green. So now we get 2 acoustic guitar voices. The first one is very much a flat response, so it lets the guitar do the talking, so to speak. The second voicing, acoustic number 2, is more of a dynamic sound, so it kind of gives it a bit more mid-scoop, and it's really good to bring to life a guitar that might not be as higher priced, if you get my meaning. So let me show you those 2 sounds by just strumming some chords. Here's the first acoustic voice. Second acoustic voice. Now we can introduce some effects. So very much like an acoustic amplifier will give you, you've got 4 choices of reverb here instead of just a couple. You've got 4 choices of mods, 4 choices of delay, so you can really spread it out. But let's go for the first acoustic voice, because I prefer that in this moment. Let's put some reverb on, so maybe a little bit of hall reverb. We can get really extra long decay control here. We can bring the level down so it's not swallowing the sound too much. So hopefully you can pick that up there. It's quite a really long decay. So then we can maybe introduce some chorus as well, which is like a nice standard setup for an acoustic guy. Quite a nice sound. To be able to get these speakers to sound great for electric guitar, great for acoustic, and the bass guitar, which I'm going to show you, is not the easiest thing, so you do need to check it out. So we'll move on to the bass guitar. Okay, so we've got a bass guitar now ready to go, and now we have 2 bass voices. The first bass voice is more of a classic tone, if you like, and the second bass voice is more of a modern, more of a clickier sound, if you like. So let's run through those for you. This is the first voice. Quite nice to use. And then the second voice. You can tell a big difference there with the pick as well. So if I just use my plectrum as I scroll through. You can tell the difference there between those 2. Now, in addition to the bass voices, the effects have been rewritten, which is really quite cool and useful for recording. Instead of reverb, which isn't really that useful with a bass guitar, we've put 4 stages of overdrive or distortion, if you like. So the actual effect level becomes the amount of gain, and each segment gets harsher as you scroll through. So if I just introduce a bit of distortion, and each segment allows you to blend the signal between the dynamics of the clean tone and also the undercurrent of the overdrive, which is really, really very useful for recording. Like I said, you can get your bass guitar to sound like it's rumbling through a big 8x10. Very cool. So, right up at the bottom of the first segment there, still very clean. So you can hear that undercurrent underneath. I've got it about midway there. If I turn it up to the top of that segment, it's full on drive, so you can see what's happening there. And as we scroll through, see where that sound's going, you know, very much like a great Muse bass guitar sound. And the last one, the ever popular fuzz. And for any of you guitar players out there or bass players that are recording a lot at home and doing your own demos and stuff, you can even get some weird and wonderful sounds, like you can make the amplifier sound like it's really crackling up, and which again is useful for recording if you're thinking outside the box. Pretty cool. So, you know, if it's at the beginning of a recording or at the end, you can add all those colours to your sound. Also on the modulations, instead of a flanger, we've added an envelope filter. So if you want to get a bit Bootsy Collins, you can, you know. That's quite cool as well, and you can mix that in with the overdrive as well. So now that I've got my bass guitar ready to go, I wanted to discuss with you the possibility of recording and using the ID core as an interface. The reason I say that is because the speakers that are housed inside the cabinet are very, very high spec, and it's very possible to record a demo at home by using just the ID core and using these speakers as your monitors. They're flat response, full range. So in order to get that demonstration across, I'm going to be using my iPad and using probably the earliest platform for recording, which is GarageBand, which is an application for the iPad, which is not too expensive at all. And I just want to show you the results that you can get. So if we just open that up, I've already got a preloaded drum track on there, so we can jam along with some ideas and see what we can come up with. Okay, so I'm just going to run the drum track and get an idea while I play along. Let's see how that sounds. I'm pretty happy with that. It's a nice tone, latency-free recording. Again, the iPad is just simulating a laptop or any DAW that has recording on there. So it might be a Mac with Logic or a laptop with Cubase, for example. So I'm happy with that bass line, and now we can look at putting an electric guitar down. Okay, so I've got my electric guitar back on board now. We're going to open a new track so we can record something else. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you the extra 2 voices for electric guitar, which is the acoustic simulators. I'm just using acoustic sim number 1 there. Now you might be thinking, why is there an acoustic sim going to be useful for me when there's acoustic voices on there? Well, one, not many people, well, not you know, some people might not have an electroacoustic at home, and you might just have an electric guitar, but also that particular type of frequency is really good for recording, and it sits between the clean voicing, the distorted voicing, and an acoustic guitar, so it can be there as the glue for your music or your track that you're recording. So we're going to use that one now. I'm going to put a little bit of reverb on there to give it some ambience. A bit less on the level, and we'll see what we can come up with. So let's take a listen back. That sounds pretty good to me so far. But while I've still got my electric guitar, I want to put some electric guitar tones down. So we'll open up a new track. And away we go. Let's select stereo, of course, because we're using a stereo unit. And let's get an electric guitar tone. So I'm going to go for more of a kind of a cleaner sound, but with a bit more bite on there, because we've got the gain control that allows us to do that. That's kind of a cool tone. So it's clean, bright, but I'm pushing that gain stage. I'm using the same reverb as before. That's the idea. So let's hope for a new take. While I've still got my electric guitar, I want to maybe put some lead guitar down. So this will give me a good opportunity again to reiterate the super wide stereo and what a really, really great feature it is on these amplifiers. So I'm just going to reintroduce a bit of delay. This is my standard dry guitar tone. If we've got some super wide stereo delay, really sounds quite distant, you know. For my ears, even being this close to the amplifier, it doesn't sound like it's coming from here, but it's surrounding me. It's a very, very cool experience. Let's introduce a little bit of reverb as well. That's quite an ambient rock guitar lead tone, and we'll attempt to put some down. Sounds pretty good to my ears, and that was just a little demonstration just in the moment, just making something up. So for home recording and demos, the ID Core Beam will be a really, really great option to have as one of your choices of items for doing such a job. So onto the Bluetooth streaming side of things. To connect a device, a tablet or a smartphone, as long as you've got Bluetooth on there, you should be ready to go. Now, the way the cabinet was designed and the speaker configuration and the way it's ported, it's built to sound really, really good even at low volumes. So there's a feature on these products that as you turn the volume down, the bass tends to widen and increase, and I'll show you that hopefully with a track that you'll be able to hear through the speakers. So hopefully you can hear there, even at low volumes, the bass response is still very, very prominent, almost like we've got a subwoofer in there. And of course, when the Bluetooth music is streaming, you can jam along. So that should give you a good idea there. And again, just encouraging you to think outside the box. You could stream anything to here. So, you know, it might be a game of sorts, you know.
EA Sports, it's in the game.
So that's just to hopefully give you an idea that if you have any kind of tablet or smartphone, wirelessly, you can have a great speaker system while you're playing. So that really shows off the Bluetooth side of things, but an exceptional sound response from streaming your music to the ID Core Beam. Okay guys, the last thing to look at is the Insider software, which is a free download, and you can get it from blackstaramps.com, and it's for Mac or PC, and it's an additional extra to the ID Core Beam, and it also works with our ID series and our ID Core series as well. It's not a recording interface, it's just an extension of the amplifier. So the first two things that you see on the drop down menu there is the front panel of the amplifier with a little bit more EQ control, which is important for you to know, because if you're plugging a bass guitar into here and you think, I've only got one EQ dial, it's not enough for me, here we have bass, mids and trebles, so you can get a lot more detail. There's also an imagery of the pedals, so you can get in really tight with your mouse and adjust them as you would in detail if you had the pedal in front of you. So that's the first two things that we see, and it talks to one another. If I move the dial on here, it will move on screen, and vice versa with the mouse. Next we have an audio player. Now this is our phrase trainer section. If you're not familiar with a phrase trainer, this will allow us to import an MP3 file, and we can play it at normal speed, but we can slow it down or speed it up to any speed we want, and it will still remain in the same key, in the same pitch, which is ideal for beginners, maybe the cover band guy that's learning the next slash solo that he needs, or anything like that. So there's no need for capos or detuning the guitar. You can literally play, slow it down and learn in your own pace. And like I said, for beginners, that's really, really useful. There's also a metronome in that section. So I'm going to play some music via my PC into the MP3 line in on top here through the ID Core Beam, and I'm going to choose a backing track, which is an AC/DC backing track. So this is Back in Black. Then I'm going to go to my library where we can store all of our presets. So I've got my own in this big right hand column here, and when you create your own, you can do it on the amp on its own without a computer, but when you're using a computer, it gives you the option of giving it a title, giving it a description, and also tagging it so people can search for it in the online community, the sharing community. With the online community, you can have your login details and a password, and you can share, download other people's patches as well as artist patches also. It's really unique. So let me choose a tone, and I've already got a preloaded tone I use here called Back in Black. So I'm going to choose that, and it will automatically load that into the amplifier. So that's a nice kind of classic rock sound, if you like. So now that I've got my track ready and also the tone, I can look to jam along. And then what I'm going to do halfway through playing, or a little bit into playing, is actually change the key, but change the pitch should I say, and the key will remain the same. So you can see that if you're learning, it's really useful.
To be
And you can see there I was part of the band for that moment. I was getting a bit carried away, but I can slow it down to any speed and it still remains on the same pitch. So importantly, if you're learning those tricky licks or those tricky riffs, really great feature. The metronome next to it is self-explanatory. It's a separate entity. It doesn't sync with the track, but again, useful to have. And you can do everything that you would expect with that as well. Change the tempo, the sound, and so on, and the level. So that's the phrase trainer that we've just looked at. And lastly to look at is just the tuner. We've got a really nice on-screen clear chromatic tuner to get your instrument sounding musical. And that's all the software is. Really nice addition, and it's a free download. Okay, so I think we've come to the end of the demonstration of the ID Core Beam here at Mega Music in Perth. I've been Steve Marks. I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, and make sure you come down to Mega Music to check out the ID Core Beam, as well as all the other fantastic Blackstar products that they sell in the store. And keep rocking. Peace.